Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to consider Senate Bill 8, the Texas Women's Privacy Act. And what this does is it draws a very clear line. Women and girls should never be forced to give up their privacy to men that are pretending to be women. This is common sense. As a dad to a little girl, our daughter should not have to worry about who's in their restroom or their changing room or their locker room. Texas must be the safest state in America to live and raise a family, and this bill helps deliver on that mission. And it's about something that's so basic that every Texan understands it instinctively. Women and girls deserve safety, dignity, and privacy in spaces that are meant just for them. And for generations, our society has recognized that bathrooms, locker rooms, restrooms, showers, family violence shelters are places where women and children should feel safe. This bill simply restores those basic boundaries, those basic biological truths, those basic biblical truths. We live in a time where these common sense boundaries are being erased, and women and girls are increasingly being forced to share their most private spaces with men. They're expected to surrender against their will, oftentimes their safety, their peace of mind, to accommodate this radical ideology. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not safe. And Senate Bill 8 makes sure women are not forced to be exposed to men in private spaces, period. And with that, I move suspension.
So let's just start with the top lines. Are you aware that it is already illegal to hurt people in spaces like restrooms or locker rooms, or even to enter with the intent of harming people? Are you aware of that?
Assault, yes.
Okay,
not
great.
lawful.
What prompted the change from personal civil or criminal penalties to holding political subdivisions accountable?
Personal civil penalties.
Yeah, previous versions of this bill have made it illegal or put civil penalties on individuals who choose the restroom that you don't agree with them going in. So this one is about suing political subdivisions. What prompted that shift in your policy?
Well, you'll have to talk to the previous bill authors. This one is about holding those that are setting the policy accountable, right? That's what it's about. And yeah, there could still be perhaps criminal trespass. If someone is told to leave, they're put on notice and that they can't be in that particular facility. That could still happen. People have been arrested for criminal trespass right here on this property and in this building. But
I heard it was because
about making those who are setting the policy accountable to enforcing it.
So it's not because the business community was completely opposed to the prior versions of this legislation?
Well, the business community actually, when you're talking about that 2017 bill, a lot of that has changed. And you know why a lot of it has changed? It's because under the Department of Education and Joe Biden, he actually said that women were going to have to just put up with men going to their restrooms, their locker rooms, their private facilities. And back then, oh, this is a solution in search of a problem. That's never going to happen. Guess what? It did happen.
You're digressing from the question, and it's
Federal Department of Education,
so we can go to the next one.
Made it happen. That they said that wasn't going to happen, and then everything we said in 2017, in 2017, came true. It all came true.
Okay. I don't totally know what all that was about, but what kind of law do you practice? Do you practice law?
Oil and gas law.
Okay. Have you ever worked with directly impacted communities of violence, or worked with women who are fleeing violence, or in any capacity as an oil and gas lawyer, have you worked with those communities?
That's not my field.
Okay. And I did hear you just say, which I totally agree with, is that nobody knows the issue like somebody who's truly impacted by it, right?
We heard a lot of testimony.
Did you not just say that? You did. So, are you aware that when people go to shelters, they're seeking care, it's an extremely dangerous moment, sometimes a split-second decision that can take a very long time. There's a lot of psychological impact of abuse, right? When women leave to go to shelters, are you aware that they often bring their dependents with them?
It does happen, yes, and there are ones that are not designated. So there are shelters, family violence shelters, that are not designated for women.
So you want people to have to go look up exactly which shelter, know their rules as they're making a split-second decision to seek safety from an abuser?
No, so what I'm asking is why would a shelter that's designated for a woman, you would fight to get a man into that shelter when they have just fled violence?
Can't think of a single
That's what
reason.
I don't understand here.
You can't think of a single reason that a woman might need to bring somebody older than 17 with her who's not a woman?
Well, the IRS designates dependents up to 24. So should a 24-year-old be in there?
You're arguing against yourself, Senator.
No, a 24-year-old man should not be in there.
What if she has a special needs son who's 20?
This accommodates for up to 18, the age of majority.
You're just going to sit there and disregard that?
No, I'm not going to disregard it. Many of these 71 facilities are not designated for women in particular. They're not.
So I do work
We know this.
with women who are seeking safety from these kinds of situations. And we also had conversations with a lot of advocates. And we also spoke with your office. My staff reached out to your office after hearing from women's violence shelters who expressed concern about how they would be impacted by your bill. And I know that you turned down amendments. On the topic of age-limiting children of abused women, your office relayed that some members thought 17 was too old to go to a shelter with your mom. Is that your view, Senator?
We did not turn down amendments. Originally, this bill was different. I don't know if you recall, before we did a committee sub on Senate Bill 240, which was the version in the regular session. And the group that you're talking about wanted family violence shelters out of the bill, period. So in other words, they wanted to allow men into women's designated family violence shelters. That's what that would have done. That's not right. And that violates the purpose of the bill. So that was not an acceptable amendment.
There are
That's what they wanted.
impacted communities and advocates who
That's what
work
they
with
wanted.
them. We also heard from your office that the shelters are seeing ghosts or seeing things that aren't there when they've asked to be exempted from this bill that puts them at risk of federal noncompliance. So just to confirm, Senator, do you think that these shelters and the advocates who serve the women in them are just looking for issues and seeing things that aren't there? Or do you think impacted communities know the best policy to keep them safe?
I just think they don't want to follow this policy, and I think it could come at the expense of women that are fleeing family violence and are forced to share that family violence shelter with a man. We have to do something about that. It's not right.
The last time you and I discussed the definitions of sex and gender, you repeatedly told me it was very simple, but I'm curious because I see a different definition for female in this bill than I've ever seen in any of your policy. What prompted the change?
I think this helps clarify it.
Okay. Always can be more shocked, Senator. Okay, the last questions I have for you, I just want to ask if you're aware of a couple of incidents. I'm a woman, I'm not a trans woman, and safety for women is personal and a huge deal. And so I want to read a couple of examples and just ask if you're aware of any of them. In August of 2025, this month, a server at a Buffalo Wild Wings followed an 18-year-old cisgender girl, a non-transgender girl, into the women's restroom because she assumed, based on her gender expression, that she was not a girl. The server banged on the stall doors, demanding that that person leave. And when she exited the stall to prove that she was a girl, she felt like she had to unzip her hoodie and expose her breasts. Are you aware of that situation?
And that's a private facility. This only deals with political subdivisions of the state and state agencies.
Yeah, I think we can safely assume that some of the same, outcomes and behaviors may bleed over. People may act the same in one space versus the other. Are you aware that 2 non-transgender women in May of this year were removed from a hotel after a male security officer entered the women's restroom, started banging on the stall doors because he thought there was a man in there, and demanded that they show identification?
Again, this bill only applies to political subdivisions of the state and state agencies.
Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. I guess I'm just asking if you're aware that because of legislation like this, that non-transgender women, in addition to transgender women, have been put at higher risk, put under scrutiny, and it's actually inviting more abuse from the people with whom we are the least safe which is cis men, non-transgender men. Are you aware of all of these incidents as you were writing this policy?
I think what this bill does is it protects.
I asked if you're aware.
I'm aware of some of those, yes. But if we don't do this, you know what's going to happen? Women are going to continue to be accused of being the oppressor for saying, I just want a safe space. I just want to make sure that when I go to the restroom, or I'm in the locker room, or I'm in the shower, or in their prison unit, or in even a family violence shelter, that they're not being threatened, that they're not fearful of a man entering that space with no consequences. And it's not right that women are being called the oppressor and then men pretending to be women are called the victims.
And you're the only person in this chamber who said that today for sure and throughout all of these discussions. And my office is open if you'd ever like to come learn about interpersonal violence and how it affects women. Thank you so much.